to Those Who Do Movie Reviews. My name is Earl, and today I'm going to review a highly anticipated movie sequel, Coming to America. This movie is a sequel to the first Coming to America that came out in 1988, and stars the returning cast of Eddie Murphy and Arsenio, including the original cast and the new cast, including Tracy Morgan, Leslie Jones, and Wesley Snipes. Basically, this movie, like every sequel that came out decades after the original, this movie took place 30 years after the first movie, where Akeem, played by Eddie Murphy, is no longer the Prince of Zamunda, he's now the new ruler of Zamunda. He finds out secretly that he has a bastard son in Queens, so him and his friend Simi, played by Arsenio Hall, goes to Queens to retrieve his son to be the new heir to the throne. I love the first Coming to America. I think it's one of my favorite comedies of all time. It's a movie that puts Eddie Murphy on the map as one of the funniest comedians of all time. I love Eddie Murphy. I think Eddie Murphy is a really funny guy. Most of his movies are pretty funny. It's because of Eddie Murphy himself. He's such a likable comedian, and it's really good to see him back doing comedies again. I haven't seen Eddie Murphy do a movie in a while, so it's really interesting to see him back into one of his most iconic roles. For this movie though, I was very skeptical of this movie, but also very interested. Because I grew up with Coming to America. It's one of my favorite comedies, like I said. So when we find out there's a sequel to that movie, I felt excited, but also skeptical. The trailers of the movie do look really good. The movie looks nice from the trailers. So I'm like, okay, I'll give this movie a shot. And besides, this movie came out on Amazon Prime. So yeah, it's not coming out in theaters. It was meant to come out last year on December, but of course during the pandemic coronavirus, it's now came out now in March. So I saw Coming to America, not Coming to America. Imagine someone asks you that question. It's like, what's your favorite Coming to America movie? And someone will say, Coming to America. And it's like, oh, the first one. No, the second one. It's like, why do they have to call it the exact similar title to the first movie? Like, I don't get it. Like, why can't they just call it Coming to America 2? But, obviously, I have to say the title in the movie for this review. So, I saw Coming to America. What do I think of this movie? Well, despite from all the negativity this movie got, this movie was okay. It wasn't as bad as people were saying, but at the same time, yes, this movie is a pretty disappointing sequel. It's a pretty bland sequel, but I still find myself enjoying throughout most of it. It's not a bad movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's definitely one of those better decades after its original sequels that came out with the same plot as every other those decade films. You know, like someone has a son or a daughter. Like, if you think about it, that plot has happened many times in sequels from movies that came out decades later. Like, if you think about it, like Dumb and Dumber 2 or Zoolander 2, it always goes through a plot saying, oh, you have a son. It's like the best plot they can come up with these sequels. But for this movie, I feel fine with it. But of course, let's talk about what I liked about this movie. And I think the thing that really saved this movie, in my opinion, is actually Eddie Murphy. Him back as Prince Akeem is just phenomenal. I love Eddie Murphy in this movie. He's still great in this movie. He still has his acting charm in this movie. He still has some funny moments in the film. I think Eddie Murphy's just such a likable actor, so when you see him back from doing comedies again, it was really delightful to see, and I think Eddie Murphy does a great job in this movie. Even Arsenio Hall, it's really good to see him back. I loved him in the original film. In this film, he doesn't play any different from the characters he was. He's still the same old Arsenio Hall that we've seen, and it's really good to see him back as his characters, and especially the improvs that Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall does in this movie, the returning of the barbers and those singers from the first movie. It's really good to see him back. It gave me so much nostalgia for the first movie. But of course, the original cast, most of the original cast from the first movie are great for what they're given. Love all of them in this movie. It's really good to see him back. Some of them I'm really shocked they are still alive right now, like James Earl Jones. He's freaking 90 years old and he's still fantastic. Like, he's still in good shape. But let's talk about the new people as well. And I would say there are two new people that I would say they are good in this movie. One of them, in my opinion, is the main daughter that Akeem has in this movie. I thought her motivations in this film was definitely the most interesting out of this film. She basically wants to be the new ruler of Zamunda, but of course during the law of Zamunda, a woman can't lead the kingdom. So I find that plot very interesting, and I find her character really good in this movie, and the actress who played her did a really good job in the film, and I really want to see her in more stuff. Of course, Wesley Snipes is absolutely my favorite aspect of this movie. Wesley Snipes is the only part of this movie where I just gut-busting laughing. I think Wesley Snipes is hilarious in the film, and also another great returning cast member that I haven't seen in a while. Like Wesley Snipes, all I know him is from Blade. So it's really cool to see him returning in movies. Like, I think Wesley Snipes was the best part of this movie, that is for sure, because I find him the most funniest out of any other characters in this film. I would say also, this movie looks beautiful, like when you see Zamunda, because most of this movie took place in Zamunda. The look of Zamunda looks absolutely beautiful. Like, I love the look of Zamunda. It looks fantastic. It makes me want to go to Africa because of the whole location of this film. It looks fantastic, and it's really interesting to see the opposite of the first film. Like, the first one took more place in America. This movie took place more in Zamunda, which it definitely did trademark itself with the title. Like, it literally shouldn't be called Coming to America. It should be called Coming to Zamunda, because that's basically more of this movie. But Zamunda is such a really nice looking kingdom, which I honestly feel like I wish I could rule that kingdom if I'm in the movie world fantasy, basically, because the movie looks really nice. There are some parts that I did chuckle, and there are some parts that did make me smile throughout most of this movie. It's not as funny as the first movie, which we'll get back to that, but I would say I do appreciate them for trying to make this movie as refreshing and new for new viewers. But I gotta say, guys, this movie isn't perfect. It was a pretty bland sequel. It's not a terrible sequel. Like, I enjoyed most of this movie as a film, but I would say it's not a movie that I would say, oh yeah, it's much better than the first one, which you have to go in the movie expecting that. It's never going to be as good as the first one. The first one will always be a classic, no matter what. But at least put a bit more effort into it, like, especially for the comedy. In my opinion, besides Wesley Snipes being the funniest part of the movie, this movie was not funny. Like, there's a lot of jokes in this film that either repeats itself from the first movie, or it just felt like bland jokes that could have been in the 90s and 80s. I feel like this movie is just going way too old school. And that's what I think this movie was trying to do. It's trying to keep us nostalgic from the first Coming to America. Like, there's even an execution where they say the exact same lines from the first movie, and I'm just like, yes, I get the joke. That happened in the first movie. We didn't even have to see it again. They do a lot of that in this movie. And especially that this movie more focuses on the son in the movie. I find the son in this movie not as interesting. I started to like him throughout the film, but his character was very bland, was very forgettable, and especially that he is the main importance of this film. But I just felt like his character wasn't that interesting at all. I'm more focused on the daughter in this film. And I wish the plot could have just gone there instead of doing the son. I feel like that plot is much more interesting, but no, they had to do the new plot where it's like, oh, I have a son, he has to be the new ruler because he has to do it because it's required by law. And I just felt like that is just so unnecessary in the film. Not to say that the guy who plays the son is a bad actor. I think he's good in the film. I just find his character very less interesting. And there are some annoying ass characters in this film also, especially Leslie Jones. I am sorry, I am not a fan of this actress. I do like her in Saturday Night Live. I find her funny in that. But like in Ghostbusters reboot in this movie, I just find her a stereotypical black lady that's just trying to be funny, but she really isn't. And I feel bad for saying that, because I think Leslie Jones is very talented in Saturday Night Live. I think she's funny in that. But in these movies, the way she is written in this movie, she's just like a background character that's just in the movie. Like, I guess she's the main importance of the film when you watch it, but I just felt like her character, it's just like, I just want the lines to eat her character, because her character was really annoying in the film. Tracy Morgan, like, he's just in the film. Like, he's just there, basically. I literally forgot who his character was in this film because it's so forgettable. But I think the biggest issue that I have with this movie is that this film goes way too nostalgic. Like, the plot of this movie, the comedy of this film, it just refers a lot to the first movie. It's like saying, oh, do you remember this? This was in the first movie. Even some unnecessary execution that's in this movie. Like, there's a part in this movie where it's just like, oh yeah, that's from the first movie. We have to remember that, and we have to laugh at that. But I just felt like that is so unnecessary in my opinion. I find this movie just honestly very bland and kind of forgettable. And that's disappointing because the first Coming to America was actually a really funny movie. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. I still remember a lot of lines from Coming to America. But for Coming to America, I can barely remember anything in this movie. Because the plot of this movie is just very bland and cliche that we know what's going to happen throughout the film. There's a lot of plot elements in this film that didn't need to be in this film because this film is very messy. Like, there's a lot of things going on in this film. I wish they honestly focused more on the main daughter in this film. I find that plot the most interesting out of this film. Guys, overall, I find Coming to America still enjoyable and fun to watch. Like, it definitely is a movie that kept me nostalgic and all that stuff, but it's definitely a movie that I find it very bland, very forgettable. It's definitely one of those other 30 years later sequels that comes out that we don't really need, to be honest. Like, literally, this is literally a bright example of Hollywood running out of ideas. Like, Hollywood now is just making sequels to unnecessary movies or rebooting from unnecessary movies. It really shows they're really running out of ideas, and Coming to America disappointingly felt like that for me. But still, I did find some enjoyment with Coming to America. It's not a terrible movie, but definitely the first movie is much better than this film, and that is very disappointing to say. I'm going to give Coming to America a C-. So guys, that is my review for Coming to America. Let me know what you think of this movie. Do you think this movie's better than the first one? That's your opinion. I am fine with it. Or you think the first one was better. Just let me know in the comments below if you like this movie, hate this movie, or you thought it's okay. I got a lot of more reviews coming up. I'm going to see a screening for Kong vs. Godzilla tomorrow, so look forward to my early review for that movie. Make sure you guys follow me on Facebook, Stardust, Letterboxd, Twitter. Keep contacting me, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel, notified for my latest movie reviews, and have a nice day.